little yarnivores and spiderettes. Fiber Spider back again with the continuation of the Tesselated Heart Blanket, and we are on row 10. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you're going to enjoy yourselves. I know I am. All right, so for row 10, we're going to start, of course, by chaining up 2 to count as our first double crochet stitch, returning the work. And we're going to start with 5 doubles because we want them to be stacked on top of these 5 doubles. So skipping this first stitch, going into the next 4 to create our total of 5. There we go. Okay, now we need our chain spaces to go on top of our previous ones. So chain 1, and then we're going to continue on with a total of 15 double crochets, the wide part of the heart. So we're going to do 15 across. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute, what about this space right here? Well, that is what I was talking about in the last video, how we're going to be creating upside down hearts. And that will become more apparent as we keep going. And I keep missing that one ply. I don't know what's wrong with me. There we go. That'll do. Okay, so we only have, at this point, we only have 7. So we do need to do a double crochet into this chain space. So that makes 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Okay, so we're going to do a chain space over this chain space, so it's every other. So basically, this shape here is going to allow us to create a new heart. And we're going to be doing another one over here. So let's do our chain 1. And then do 15 more double crochets. And I'm doing that thing with the plies again. There we go. Yeah, it happens, even to me. All right, so we should have 7 at this point. Yep, so keep going. This one in the chain space will make 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Okay. Now, probably thinking to yourself, okay, hang on, Fiber Spider, wait just a minute. If I chain 1 and I continue on, we're not going to have 15. Well, you're right. That's because the hearts are offset with each other. So this is why I'm being as thorough as I am being, because this can lead to confusion, and that is not what I want for you. So right now we are going to chain 1, skip this space going into that next double crochet, and do 12 more for a total of 13, not 15, but 13. And I was talking to a friend of mine about this particular tutorial that I'm doing, and I said, I hope that I'm not being boring or redundant or anything. And he was saying, well, no, you're being thorough. And I said, well, it's a fine line to walk. And I've mentioned this number of videos, but I would much rather have things be clear and risk being boring than be vague, and I end up with a lot of questions that I could have answered earlier. So I do try. Okay, and then last double crochet into the top of this chain 2 at the end here. There we go. Okay, so this should be 13. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 3 is 13. Perfect. All right, so as you can see, we have this little shape here, but then this, because you've got this sort of arch here and this arch here, and the lines going up, this is going to be an upside down heart, as well as this. And then this is going to be part of one, just like the very end is going to be just part of a heart, not a complete heart, as opposed to what we have down here. So that being said, let's proceed on to row 11. All right, so for row 11, basically it's going to be stacked right on top of row 10. And so for row 10, we started with 5, we went through with 15s, and we ended with 13. Well, for row 11, I'm going to start by chaining up 2. That's going to count as our first double. Turn the work. And so instead of ending with 13, we're going to begin with 13, do our 15s, and end with 5. So it's the exact opposite. So we got our chain 2, skipping this first stitch, going into the next. So we've got 2. We need 11 more for a total of 13. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Okay, chain space above the chain space, and proceed on with a double in each double for a total of 15 doubles. And of course, as I always say, these types of patterns are good for more than just blankets, really. If you want, you could do a lovely table runner, or, oh, this would make an awesome curtain. And I mean, of course, you would want to use a much lighter yarn or thread, perhaps a mercerized crochet cotton. This would make a lovely carton, indeed. As far as figuring out how to attach it to the curtain rod, well, hey, you're for that, I'm sorry, you're on your own. That is not my forte, but you can do a bunch of things with this. All right, so we have our 15, and we are above our chain 1 space, so chain 1, untangle your yarn, and so skipping that space, going into the next. There you go. And let's proceed with our 15. That's kind of the beauty about a lot of crochet patterns, is that you can alter them to suit your needs into whatever you really want. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of fiddling and finagling. Okay. And almost there. Okay, just got to do this last double. There we go. Chain 1 over the chain space, and we need 5 more double crochets at the end of this row. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and double crochet into that last chain 2. There we go. Okay, and that is the end of row 11. Alrighty. Okay, row 12. Start by chaining up 2 and turn your work. Okay, so going to start in with a total of 3 double crochets. This, of course, counts as our first. Skip this first stitch and go into the next 2 for a total of 3 doubles. All right, so now this needs to start to branch out. So chain 1 and skipping this stitch, going into the next, and 2 more for a total of 3. So we've got 2 groupings of 3 to start off with. Okay. Now we're going to be going back and forth between, and of course I have a knot already, wouldn't you know? We're going to be going back and forth between groupings of 11 and 3 for the rest of this row. So chain 1, skip the next stitch, going into the next one for 11 double crochets. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Okay. So chain 1, skip a stitch, going into the next, and 2 more for a total of 3. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1. Okay, skip the next stitch, going into the next. And 10 more for a total of 11. It's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Chain 1, skip a stitch, going into the next, and 2 more for a total of 3. Chain 1, skip a stitch, going into the next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and double crochet into that last stitch for a total of 11. There you go. Okay, so that ends row 12. So as you can see, this heart shape is now coming to a close, and we're going to be starting in on some new ones soon enough. All right, so let's keep going. Okay, row 13 is going to be nice and easy. It's going to be spaces and sevens. So I'm going to start with a space. So chain up 3, and that is going to count as a double crochet and a chain 1 space. So skipping not just this stitch, but also the next, going into that 3rd stitch with a double, and 6 more for a total of 7. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Chain 1, skip a stitch, going into the next, and 6 more for a total of 7. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Chain 1, skip a stitch, going to the next, and 6 more for a total of 7. And we're going to do this all the way across. So that's 4, 5, 6, and 7, chain 1, skip a stitch going into the next, and 6 more for a total of 7. It's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay. Chain 1, skip a stitch going into the next, and 6 more for the total of 7. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Shift your work as needs be. Okay. Chain 1, skip a stitch going into the next, and 6 more for a total of 7. Okay, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Chain 1, skip a stitch, and double crochet into that last double crochet. So we began and finished with a chain space and 7s across. Okay, so looking at our piece, these hearts are really coming into a level of fruition, which is good. We like that. All right, let's keep going. All right, so for row 14 is actually very similar to row 12. Now, so with row 12, this row right here, we began by doing 2 groupings of 3, and then it was 11, 3, 11, 3, 11, 3, ending on 11. This one, it's starting the exact opposite way. It's beginning with 11, going 11, 3, 11, 3, 11, 3, 11, 3, and then ending with 2 groupings of 3. So it's the exact opposite. And that's part of how this blanket fits together. So we're going to start by chaining up 2. That's going to count as our first double, and we need 10 more for a total of 11. So skipping this first stitch, going right into the chain space for our second stitch, and 9 more for a total of 11. See, it's not enough just for me to say, okay, this is what we're doing. I like to explain why we are doing what we're doing. It's all about inversion here. So I've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, excuse me, 10, and 11. Okay. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11. Perfect. All right, so now chain 1, skip the next stitch, going into the next, and 2 more for a total of 3. There we go. Got our grouping of 3. Now, again, chain 1, skip the next stitch going into the next, and 10 more for a total of 11. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Chain 1, skip a stitch going into the next, and 2 more for a total of 3. Chain 1, skip a stitch going into the next, and 10 more for a total of 11. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Chain 1, skip a stitch going into the next, and 2 more for a total of 3. Chain 1, skip a stitch going into the next, going into that chain space, and then into the second chain from the bottom for the third double crochet. Ta-da! Just like I said, ending with 2 groups of 3, just like in row 12 where we started with 2 groups of 3. See, there's a method to the madness, believe it or not. All right, so as you can see, these upside down hearts are closing in, but also we have new hearts forming. This is the bottom of a new heart, just as this one is. See, it all comes together. All right, onwards to row 15. All right, row 15. Okay, so as always, start by chaining up 2, turn the work, and we're going to start with a grouping of 5. So this, of course, counts as our first double. Skip that first stitch going into the next, and 3 more for a total of 5. So I've got 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, chain 1, and now it's going to be just 15s all the way to the end with the exception of the last increment. So it's going to be a lot of 15s. So got my chain 1, skip this stitch going into the next, and 14 more. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Okay. Chain 1, skipping the next double crochet, going into the next, and 14 more for a total of 15 again. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Okay. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, going into the next. Okay, we are running out of runway here. So this last increment is going to be 13. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and double crochet into that last one for a total of 13. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 3 is 13. Perfect. Okay, so the upside down hearts, that is the absolute point right there. And so our new hearts coming along nicely. All right, let's keep going. Let's get to it. All right, so row 16 is going to be the reverse of row 15. With row 15, we started with 5, did a bunch of 15s, ended with 13. With row 16, we're going to start with 13, do a bunch of 15s, end with 5. So it's basically just building up one row on top of the last, following suit with what we did. So chain up 2. And of course, not going into this very first stitch, but the one next. And 11 more for a total of 13. So we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Okay. Chain space above the chain space. Skip that chain space, going to the next, and 14 more for a total of 15. So the chain spaces, they're not shifting, it's just one stacked on top of the next. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Just when the shifting happens, that's when you have to be mindful. And we'll get there. If my yarn would stop splitting. There we go. Alrighty. So we've reached our 15. Chain one space, so chain one, skip that chain space, going into the next, and 14 more for the total of 15. Okay, and we've reached the end where I need to do my chain one, skip that space, going into the next, and 4 more for a total of 5 in this grouping. So that's 2, 3, 4, and double crochet into the top of that chain 2. There we go. And there you have it. That's the end of row 16. Okay, row 17, it's going to be nice and easy. It's 5s and 7s, beginning and ending with 5s, 7s in the middle. So, chain up 2, skipping that first stitch, of course, going into the next 4 for a total of 5. So that's 3, 4, and 5. Chain 1, skip the space, going into the next, and 6 more for a total of 7. It's 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Chain 1, skip a stitch going into the next, and 6 more for a total of 7. Sorry, my yarn keeps getting tangled on me. I do apologize. But it is gorgeous yarn and we can forgive it. So I've got 4, 5, 6, and 7. Chain 1. Skip the space going into the next. And 6 more for a total of 7. It's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And bear with me a moment. Chain 1. Okay. Skip a stitch going into the next. And 6 more for a total of 7. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay. Red heart. Red heart, red heart. There we go. Chain 1. Skip the chain space going into the next stitch. And 6 more. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Chain 1. Skip a stitch going into the next. And 4 more for a total of 5. Like I said, we begin and finish with 5s. And when I say 5s, I mean groupings of 5s. Okay, so I got 4 and 1 more at the very end. And there you go. Okay, it's the end of row 17. See, now these in the middle are going to be the divots of the new hearts, where you have this arch and then the other arch, and that's that divot in the middle. That's what that is, just like down here for these hearts. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, row 18 is going to be a breeze. It's all 3s. Okay, so chain up 2. And of course, as always, do not stitch into this first stitch, but going into the next. And 1 more for a grouping of 3. And really, that's what we're going to be doing for the entire row, just groupings of 3s. So chain 1, skip the next, going to the next, and 2 more to make 3. And then chain 1, skip the next stitch, going into the next, and 2 more for a grouping of 3. Chain 1, skip 1, go into the next 3. Nice and easy. Chain 1, skip 1, go into the next 3. Chain 1, skip 1, go into the next 3. Chain 1, skip 1, go into the next 3. Go. Chain 1, skip 1, go into the next 3. Chain 1, skip 1, go into the next 3. It's got a rhythm to it. Although I have 2 left feet, so I don't know. Chain 1, skip 1, go into the next 3. Chain 1, skip 1, go into the next 3. Chain 1, skip 1, go into the next 3. Chain 1, skip 1, and go into the last 3. Alrighty. Told you it was easy. Sort of a stress-free row. Okay. Getting there. All right. One more to go for today. Let's get to it. Okay, row 19 is also pretty darn easy. It's going to begin and end with spaces, and the rest is 7s. So, beginning with a space, we need to chain up 3, turn the work, skip the first stitch and the second stitch going into the third with our first double, and 6 more for a total of 7. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Chain 1, skip 1, going into the next, and 6 more for a total of 7. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Chain 1, skip a stitch, going to the next, and 6 more for a total of 7. That's 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, chain 1, skip a stitch, going into the next, and 6 more. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, chain 1, scoot your work, skip a stitch, going to the next, and 6 more. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, chain 1, skip 1, going into the next. That's 2, 3, yep, there we go. 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now we began with a space, we need to end with a space. So chain 1, skip this stitch, going into the last, double crochet that chain 2 there with a double crochet. Da 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 dum. And there you go. That's the end of row 19. All right, so looking over our progress, we started at the very bottom, and we have a complete set of hearts along the bottom, and then we have a complete set of hearts that are upside down, and now we have a complete set of hearts at the top. However, as you can see, on the one side and on the other side, they are incomplete. That is why it is such a long repeat. I will be the first to admit that. And of course, you could leave off whenever you want to. However, I would like to get back up to the point where you would be able to continue on with the full hearts in the upright position. That's going to take a while, but I'm in it for the long haul, you guys. I am. And so we're going to keep on keeping on in this fashion. And I really hope you're enjoying this tutorial crochet along series. I know I am. I always love spending time with you guys. And if you are enjoying it, please give a little thumbs up button. And if you're still watching after all this time, thank you. Glad to have you here. All right, so until next time, you know what to do. Stay inspired, stay caffeinated, stay stitching, and please stay safe. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now.